Mr. Peter Byck, and Peter is a director, a producer, and writer of Carbon Nation. And we're actually going to start with one of his productions, Soul Carbon Cowboys. But Peter has also just joined the faculty at Arizona State University in both the School of Sustainability and the Cronkite School of Journalism. During the filming and editing of Carbon Nation, Peter has met and collaborated with the leading minds from the world of climate, clean energy, military applications, and land use. His contacts span the globe, and I know this for certain. It is keeping him up to date on the fast-moving frontier of the clean energy revolution, and he is also currently in production for Carbon Nation 2.0. It's an ongoing series, or will be an ongoing series of short films promoting a low carbon economy produced in affiliation with Arizona State University. So with that, let's please welcome Peter Byck.
It's such an honor to be here. A year ago, we had just finished filming with Neil Dennis, who I wish was here. So everyone send out a good prayer for Neil. And we just finished with Gabe Brown and Paul. And so last year I wanted to talk to you guys about all this stuff, but I didn't know enough yet. Making the movie has taught me an enormous amount about what you all do. And let's start with the movie, and then I'll talk for just a little bit afterwards, and we'll get on with the rest of the day. So with that, we're good to go. All right. North Dakota, Mississippi, Saskatchewan, home to hundreds of thousands of cows.
See, they're all looking at us now. They know there's somebody different.
And a few bold ranchers who got the guts to change when nature forced their hand.
When my wife and I went through the 4 years of crop failure, I'm sure I was not a pleasant man to be around, in that it was extremely high stress.
We got into financial problems and couldn't make payments, and the bank figured we should sell the land and keep doing what we were doing with the big machinery with less land while we dug a hole faster.
But my wife and I will tell you, best thing that could have happened to us. Because what it was, it forced us to start looking at the soil.
Since the 1800s, letting cattle roam freely for weeks and months was second nature.
Well, this will be a very typical conventionally grazed situation, and where they're allowed to just keep returning back to the exact same area day after day to graze.
But then you start getting cows eating the same plant all the time, and then they go after the best ones, and that weakens the root system on those, so the poorer plants take over. So we ended up with poor pasture every year.
With their pastures dying, Neil's wife insisted he take a class from someone teaching a new way to graze.
I soon found out it was easier to go along and argue with her, so I went for the one day, but I didn't want to be there. So from 98 to 2004, I tried to prove him wrong. And I didn't have much luck. Everything started turning around when I started doing things different. I got different results.
Results produced by grazing that regenerates the soil, equal parts art and science, with a splash of history.
Our prairie soils were formed by large herds of bison, elk. They would move, they'd graze an area and keep moving, and they might not return to that area for a year, maybe 2 years.
To mimic this herd migration, they break up their ranches into small areas called paddocks.
I'm going out to set up a temporary fence to make a small paddock of 1 acre or less. So I hang a bat latch on the permanent post, and 12 feet away I found a temporary post and string my wire across, and then I come back and put my step-in pigtails in. And then I go put electricity in the fence, and that's it. I can put one up and down 1/4 mile in 18 minutes. I'll put anywhere from 800 to 1,000 head on an acre or half an acre.
The cattle readily move into a new paddock because they always know they're going to get a fresh bite of grass. And what happens is that at higher stock densities, these cattle feel like things are a little competitive. They figure if I don't get it, my neighbor's going to get it, so they go ahead and grab and bite and grab and bite.
In 2 to 2.5 hours, it'll be either eaten or trapped on the ground.
We graze it and then we get the heck off of it.
It's ate off pretty good. You'll see some places are a bit shorter than others.
The magic is how long to stay off.
This is an 80-day recovery on this one right now. And that's where I think I need to be instead of anything less.
For several decades, we sort of pushed monocultures in pastures. Plant just Bermuda grass or just fescue. Why? Because it was easy. You were managing for one species. You knew how to fertilize a monoculture. But when you manage a polyculture, a cocktail mix, then that's something that for today's generation is a little foreign.
I'll take you down and show you that cocktail mix that I threw in so we get a picture of it before the cows eat it. This here is black medic. It's a legume, and it puts down nitrogen.
This species right here is called hairy vetch. Very high in protein. It'll be over 30% protein.
And I got sunflowers, corn.
This plant here is called Phacelia. That flower attracts the pollinators, and we want the pollinators in our system.
In many areas of the U.S. and in many areas globally, we're seeing a dearth of pollinator insects. And we have found that if we provide the habitat for pollinators, they will return.
Okay, these are sow thistles. They're a weed, but if you eat them when they're just flowering or in the bud, early bud stage, they're higher protein than what the alfalfa is.
My philosophy now is this: if livestock eat it and it provides nutrition to those livestock, it's not a weed, it's a forage.
Some guys might get the spray can out. They want to spray every weed there is.
And the truth is, if I went in here and sprayed a herbicide to take care of these small amount of weeds that we have, I would also be taking care of my red clover, white clover, and all my other legumes in there and getting rid of those. And we're saving money. We're not having to buy a herbicide, we're not having to employ machinery, tractors and equipment to put it out as well.
Why do I want to go out and spend thousands upon thousands of dollars every year on synthetic fertilizer when I can grow these crops for just the cost of the seed? They'll make the nitrogen for me, and then my livestock will come around and eat these plants, convert it to dollars for me to sell. So I'm getting all my fertilizer basically for a profit because I'm making money off of these crops.
These plants are just almost going nuts, so to speak, with photosynthetic activity once we take the cattle off. And that is allowing these plants, as they're rapidly regrowing, to capture carbon out of the air, and put it back into the soil.
Because of overgrazing, overuse of chemicals, and erosion, the amount of carbon in our soils is dangerously low.
I think our whole world revolves around the carbon in the soil because it's those carbon molecules that feed soil life. And it's those microorganisms that feed all the plants that nourish all the animals that feed civilization.
Many have thought restoring large amounts of carbon to soil would take centuries. These folks only need a decade, and maybe less.
Last month we did soil tests on our operation, and what we found is that we've over tripled the amount of organic matter, in other words, the amount of carbon stored in our soils.
Carbon-rich soils soak up heavy rainfall. Carbon-depleted soils don't.
When there was quite a bit of rain, the water would run down the hill and there would be water laying in the bottom of that slough. And now I get better water infiltration. That doesn't happen to me anymore.
In 1993, we could only infiltrate 1/2 inch of rainfall per hour. Now we can infiltrate over 8 inches of rainfall per hour. Think of the ramifications of that. I tell people, it's not how much moisture and rainfall you get, it's how much can your soils hold.
Because carbon-rich soils hold on to water, they help the ranchers weather droughts.
This was seeded 8 weeks ago, and it's only seen 38/100ths an inch of rainfall. Yet look how healthy it is.
The way that we graze these cattle and run these cattle, and with the health of the soil and the health of the plants that they're feeding on, they stay healthy. They don't get sick, they don't need to be treated.
I used to carry a crossbow, 3 big bottles of medicine for treating them. And now out of the 850 head here, I've only treated less than 20 this year.
This particular farm here is about 1,000 acres in size. And in terms of day-to-day activity, building paddocks for the week, moving cattle, you're looking at the person that does that on a day-to-day basis.
I've got more spare time on my hands and I know what to do with. I do a lot of thinking of how to do all these things easier. If I was to start this when I was your age, you know what would have happened? I would have had 15 kids by now because I spend so much time in the house.
You know, this is always the best part of my day. I guess one of the reasons I'm content is because you clearly see they're content. You know, they're happy.
We're still here after 10 or 15 years, and we wouldn't have been if we'd have kept doing what we were. I'd have been flipping hamburgers somewhere.
It's extremely low stress because we're working with nature instead of against her.
My mother didn't think much of it when I first started it. She was pretty upset seeing all the weeds. Now she's bragging to her friends about what I'm doing.
That's the end of the movie. Thank you very much. Excuse me. I just got some water and I didn't drink any of it. Thank you very much. I'll just be make it real simple. I think that you all are heroes. You're my heroes. I think that the power that you have with your soils could solve so many of our problems that you got a chance to make life really good for most people on this planet. I'm going to do everything I can to make sure as many people know what you're doing so that more people will do it. I have this fantasy of a lot more people coming into agriculture. I think there's too few people working in this field right now. I think the experiment for giant farming, we've done it. Okay, got the results, and I think a lot more people could be working on a lot of land, and that's what I've learned just really in the last year that I've been on this project. Now, you saw in the credits that it talked about ASU and a soil carbon team that we're putting together. Gabe and Alan Williams and Jason Roundtree, you heard his name, and a lot of scientists have all come together to, well, basically here it is in a nutshell. From what I've understood, conventional science says what you do is impossible. And we need to then prove that it's not impossible. We need to prove that it's actually happening. And so we're going to do we're going to do a lot of measuring, and with and Alan's leading the way to coordinating with farmers and ranchers who want to participate with us, so we can jump on your operation and do a lot of core sampling and measuring and counting insects and all those things. And so that's a project that we've got going right now. In the program, you'll see a page where we talk about this, and we have an email. And our email is, actually I'll bring this up right here. The email's on there as well. Oh, this is a paper that says that it's impossible. So, well, you know what? I'm not. It's in the program. Let me just quit out of here. So, the idea that our soils. See, it's funny because I don't have anything to say to you all because you all know it all already. I'm learning from you. That's what's going on right now. I'm learning from you. And what I learned this morning when I put my boots on was I'll be taking a little bit of Greg and Jan Judy's operation with me on an airplane later on today to England. So I might have to do a little cleaning before I leave the hotel this morning. I've learned that I love the slow motion shots with the insects, and I've learned that when I've been on different operations that if I get the insects for my filming, then it's a healthy place. And if I don't get the insects, then it's a young place and they're on their way. I don't know which one flipped for me. I don't know if it was on your farm, Gabe, or if it was on Alan's, or if it was up in Neil's. I don't have any clue who did the flipping, but that one gets a lot of attention. What I want to do is continue filming. So I've talked to a few folks have actually come up to me at this conference this year who've expressed interest in me coming to their operation to film. So even though that ad says, "Hey, do you want us to do science on your operation?" It's really, do you want us to do some filming too? So the email is very simple: soil@carbonnation.tv. I do have a question I want to ask everybody. If there was a real, verifiable, honest market for carbon, and that people wanted to pay you for putting more carbon in your soil, how many people would be interested in that? Okay. All right. Cool, because I've gotten both. When I've been out filming, I've gotten people saying, "No way. I don't want anyone telling me what to do," and that would be telling me what to do. But that's really interesting. One of the projects that we're working on, and you're going to hear from Russ Concert tonight at the banquet, and I don't want to take too much steam from him, but as I've been meeting, filming, learning from everyone doing the work you're doing, it looks like a lot of carbon's going into the soil. And the early data from a fellow named Richard Teague at Texas A&M, he's quantifying it, and there's also some work out of Australia with Christine Jones, but it's really early data. That's the stuff we want to measure. It's looking like a lot of carbon's getting into the soils, and so an idea that I had was, what if What if, you know, the oil industry, the coal industry, the fossil fuel industry, they really, 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 really want to capture carbon and put it in the ground. They call it carbon capture and storage, CCS. And it's been a real tough nut for them to crack, technologically and physically. And I thought, well, what if they could use what you all are doing as a way to get that carbon out of the atmosphere? And so I met a fellow from Shell, who's now not at Shell. He'll be speaking tonight at your banquet. And we pitched it to Shell Game Changer, which is a part of Shell that takes the crazy ideas and throws a little money at it. And we're working with them to sort of figure out, how do we create businesses, lots of businesses, a whole ecosystem of financially irresistible businesses to drive and build upon what you all are doing. So underground, as Gabe's taught me, carbon's the currency. So why not make carbon a currency in a real market is what we're exploring. So we're open to all ideas along those lines too. And usually when I do these talks, I always have some Q&A and stuff, but we don't have a whole lot of time. But is there anybody who has a question for me? Any kind of question? All right, cool. Well, let me help you guys get back on schedule. And like I said, soil@carbonnation.tv. We are here to tell your stories, and we're here to celebrate all the hard work. And it's a lot of hard work. I've learned a lot just this last week in filming up at Doug Peterson's place, and then out in northwestern Kansas, a young guy named Michael Thompson and his friend Clint Cox. And you know, it's not like you just turn it on. My first experience was I go to Neil Dennis, I go to Gabe Brown, and I go to Alan Williams. I'm like, oh, this is easy. You just, you know, because I'm coming onto these operations that are so well established. And now I've been able to film some folks 2 years in, 3 years in, 4 years in, and I can see that it is a lot of work, and it's different everywhere. And I think it's incredibly exciting. I'll say it again, I think you all have in your hands the knowledge to solve so many problems in our world. And I'm honored to be able to speak here. And I thank you, Gabe and Alan and everybody for bringing me. So thank you very much.